Hey everybody, it's Compleatly, and welcome back to some more Magic Arena. Today I'll be playing the Festival Completely Outmatched event. This is a Standard Brawl Preconstructed Deck event where we'll be showcasing 5 different commanders from Phyrexia. All will be one. The event costs 5,000 gold or 1,000 gems, and for that entry fee you will be receiving all 10 of the black and white Manga Planeswalker Card Styles for the set. This is the cheapest you're ever going to get these card styles, as most of the card style bundles in the store are about 5,000 gold for 5 card styles instead of 5,000 for 10 like you're getting here. And even for the Planeswalker card styles, they can get even more expensive, like the Phyrexian Planeswalker styles being 10,000 gold for just 5 of them. If you are just in it for the card styles, all you have to do is pay the entry fee and then wait until the 13th when the event will end, because when the event ends you will receive all of the card styles automatically, even if you haven't grinded out your 5 wins in the format. That being said, I am going to be playing all 5 of the decks today, trying to get a win with each of them, because I would like to check out the new commanders and see what we can do with them. Before we hop into that though, make sure to check your mail, because for the new set, as always, you can get 3 free packs and the basic lands from the format. The first deck we'll be playing today is the green-blue Ezuri Stalker of Spheres deck. Ezuri is 2 green and a blue for a 3/3 legendary Phyrexian elf warrior. When Ezuri enters the battlefield, you may pay 3 additional mana to proliferate twice, and whenever you proliferate, you get to draw a card. So this is going to do a lot of the classic proliferate deck things, proliferating the brand new counters like oil counters on cards like Glistener Seer, as well as potentially poison counters on your opponent if you can do some toxic damage to them. But we are also using a lot of the old school kind of ways that you would proliferate, adding +1/+1 counters to your cards like Fairy Vandal, Ledger Shredder, Gala Greeters, and Quirion Beastcaller, all of your early game threats, so you can have some really large board states trying to just beat your opponent down as all of your cards get more and more counters and become more and more threatening. With all the counters running around, we also have some modified synergies with cards like Kodama of the West Tree, giving pretty much all of your creatures trample, and letting you search for a land every time you deal combat damage to a player. Jugan Defends the Temple as well, another card that is going to have that modified ability almost all the time. The flip side of this being a 7/7 flyer with trample. As long as you have 5 or more modified creatures, almost every creature in the deck is going to be modified. So a lot of varying counters to proliferate, +1/+1 counters to beef up your cards, poison counters to try to poison your opponent, and oil counters to get some more abilities going. So pretty fun, pretty flexible deck here. We'll see how it plays as we get into the gameplay. Here we are in game 1. We could take a free mulligan, but we do have Bloated Contaminator at 3, which is one of the strongest cards in this deck. We've also got some decent early game card draw, so I'm going to keep this hand. See how it works out for us. There is a card I've never seen before in the hand that I'm a little interested in checking out, which is this Serum Sovereign. 5 mana for a 4/4 flying. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put an oil counter on it. You can spend 1 mana, remove an oil counter from it to draw a card and scry 2. Well, that seems very powerful in this deck. I believe that is one of the cards that is not in the main draftable Phyrexia All Will Be One set. One of those Jumpstart exclusives or something like that. Very powerful card though. We're playing against the black-white deck, which is Ria Ivor, Bane of Bladehold. That is probably pronounced incorrectly, but it's basically a black-white tokens deck featuring a bunch of new Phyrexian Might tokens from the new set. So our opponent started off with Voldaren Bloodcaster, which for now is just a 2 mana 2/1 flyer, but every time their non-token creatures die, they get blood tokens, and if they get enough of them, they get to turn this into a bigger flyer that can start turning those tokens into bats to beat us down with. So we're just going to keep hitting them with this Canker Bloom that we drew into, this 2 mana 3/2 nice aggressive body, and play an additional very nice aggressive body, the Bloated Contaminator here. 7 power on the board on turn 3, but I'm assuming the black-white deck is going to have a decent amount of removal. Charger the Mites is the play. Get 2 1/1s with Toxic that can't block. The Toxic ability, of course, putting a poison counter on us when this creature deals combat damage to us. They even have the new Murex land in there that can produce more Phyrexian Might tokens. Here's a Rite of Oblivion, allowing them to sacrifice one of those mites to exile a non-land permanent, and they can flash it back later. So, pretty great removal spell in a token-based deck like that. Send in with the Cankerbloom, and I'm just going to keep curving out with beefy creatures here, drop the Venomous Brutalizer, rather than playing Ezuri, because Ezuri, without the extra mana commitment, isn't going to do anything until we start proliferating, so I'd rather get the big 4/4 on the board here. Threaten some toxic damage, so maybe we can start proliferating poison as well. There's the commander from our opponent. They can choose to make Voldaren Bloodcaster produce might tokens instead of damaging us. That is the ability there. So they can either hit us for 2 with Bloodcaster or make 2 Phyrexian mites. So this is actually really scary for us when our opponent has evasive creatures that we can't block well. Like that 2/1 flyer. See what our opponent chooses to do here. They are going to go for it. Go ahead and produce 2 more mites instead of damaging us. Which is not good. We definitely need a flyer to deal with this Voldaren Bloodcaster, which I think is what we're going to do here. Teferi would be fine, but then they get to keep hitting us, keep making more mites. So I'm going to drop the Serum Sovereign here, make sure I actually have a flyer, and we'll send in the Brutalizer, because their commander is not big enough to block it well. And the mites, of course, just can't block at all. Platoon Dispenser is the next play from our opponent, which is a very powerful one. At the beginning of their end step, if they control 2 or more other creatures, they get to draw a card. So they now have a pretty absurd card draw engine on their board. A 5-mana 4/6 that's also drawing them an additional card each turn. Yep, and we have nothing to kill the 4/6. I guess I can kill it with the Cankerbloom here. Yeah, that is true. It is an artifact, so that's probably the play. That way the Brutalizer can keep getting in. And I still have 5 mana up. I could play Teferi as well. Or I could go Vorak plus Augury instead. Alright, well, first and foremost, we know we're going to blow this dispenser up. And then likely send in the Brutalizer. They can kill the Brutalizer if they double block, but then I kill their commander. I have no more flying blockers, so I don't think I'm sending the Serum Sovereign in here. Unless I want to get really aggressive, but I'm worried about them producing too many mites for us to get toxiced out. Yeah, I think I'm going to hold this back and maybe play Teferi here. Alright. Take the damage. They're up to 6 poison. I'm into that. Ezuri can proliferate twice. That would make them 8 poison. Vorak can proliferate once, and Augury can proliferate. We might be on the proliferate game plan here, hitting them for 6 poison total. We proliferate with Augury, proliferate with Vorak, puts them at 8, then we play Ezuri and proliferate 2 more times, put them to 10. Yeah, poison game plan it is then. We play the Vorak. Could hit the land to guarantee I can play Ezuri next turn, but I'd rather just proliferate. Putting them to 7 poison, and then we'll use the Augury to draw the land, because that will proliferate to put them to 8, as well as putting a land into our hand, hopefully out of the top 3. That way next turn I have the 7 mana to play Ezuri and proliferate twice, ending this game thanks to poison counters. We'll see, our opponent definitely has options. They're going to go for Defiler of Faith. Probably hit us with Bloodcaster again. Actually, no, I have a Sky Sovereign up. What am I talking about? Alright, pass turn. We drop the Augury here, putting them to 8 poison. There's no land in the top 3, but there is Infectious Bite to give them another poison counter. And if we top deck a land after this, we can still cast Ezuri and immediately win. Did not top deck a land, but I did hit Tainted Observer, which lets us proliferate off other creatures. Put them to 9 poison, or I have to wait for Ezuri here. I guess we're just putting them to 9 poison, but that's still more than threatening enough. I think I can just Tainted Observer. I can use the Sovereign to draw a card Scry 2 to make sure I have the land next turn. And then I'm still holding up Infectious Bite while holding up all these blockers. So Infectious Bite, of course, going to give them an additional poison counter, put them at 9. And then if Tainted Observer is still on board, all I have to do is play any creature and spend an additional 2 mana to proliferate. but if Tainted Observer dies, we can still try to use the Sovereign to draw into the land that we need to play Ezuri and proliferate twice. So there's Adeline, very powerful token card. I'm probably going to love that black-white deck if it's got Adeline in it. One of the main cards in the mono-white aggro deck in Explorer that I love playing. Here's an Emergency Weld now to pick up the Platoon Dispenser, so they can recast that later. Ability on the Bloodcaster. Send it in, get the 1/1 token from Adeline, but we'll go ahead and just block that and block the token while they are tapped out. And then let's get those lands to play Ezuri. There's the land, and then we get to scry 2 as well, hit another land, and they're going to scoop them up. They know that we get to dig essentially 6 cards deep, because we draw a card, scry 2, then draw a card, scry 2, just trying to find the land, and all we need to cast Ezuri is 1 land, so we're pretty much guaranteed there, even without Infectious Bite, to proliferate 2 more times, putting them to 10 poison counters. And here we have our first 2 of those Manga Planeswalker Card Styles. We have Nahiri, the Unforgiving, and Tyvar, Jubilant Brawler. Some crazy eyes on Tyvar there. I'm pretty into these card styles. I'm probably going to use these. For the next deck, we have Kethek Crucible Goliath. This is 2 a black and red for a 4/4 legendary Phyrexian beast. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-legendary creature with lesser mana value. You put that onto the battlefield, then put the rest of the revealed cards on the bottom of your library in a random order. This is an interesting take on the Rakdos Sacrifice deck. This commander requires you to be sacrificing non-token creatures to get anything out of this effect, because tokens do not have a mana value. So you get to sacrifice a lot of creatures with powerful death triggers, or creatures that are going to die in your end step anyway. So it has some blitz cards like Nightclubber. That way you can order it to where you get to sacrifice the Nightclubber to Kethek's ability before the blitz makes you sacrifice it. You can also use some cards that have, again, good death triggers like Atsushi the Blazing Sky and Junji the Midnight Sky. That way you're getting value out of your creatures as you're sacrificing them, as well as digging out other creatures from your deck. And there's a lot of cards in this deck that just have good abilities as permanents are dying. So you have the brand new Drivnod Carnage Dominus doubling up all of your death triggers. Cards like Garna letting you make your opponent lose life as your creatures are dying. Charforger getting oil counters as they're dying. Lagomos potentially letting you search your library for any card if enough creatures have died during your turn. So just a lot of sacrifice stuff going on here, a lot of death triggers, trying to double those up with Drivnod, trying to get tons of value off of cards that are spitting out zombies or drawing you cards as creatures are dying, bunch of stuff like that. So again, pretty classic Rakdos Sacrifice deck here, but this time really focused on sacrificing larger cards with good death triggers. We'll see how it plays out as we head into the gameplay. Alright, here we are with our Kethek Crucible Goliath deck. We're going to be playing Cult Conscript turn 1 with this opening hand, so it's a very solid keep to me. Bunch of great value plays. Phyrexian Rager drawing a card when it hits the board. Puppeteer returning a creature from grave to battlefield when it dies. And then Drivnod doubling all of our death triggers, which is going to be a sweet card for this deck. No turn 2 play, so I'll get the tap land out of the way here and hit for 2. We are against Ovika Enigma Goliath. This is the blue-red spells deck from Phyrexia All Will Be One. Going to be using a lot of the classic stuff you've seen in blue-red spells lately, just in standard in general. But some of the new Phyrexia All Will Be One cards are pretty nice in these non-creature spell focused decks as well. We'll see what they've got. Definitely some spell slinging going on out of our opponent's deck. So we'll drop our Phyrexian Rager this turn, go ahead and do that post-combat. We did miss on a 2 mana card to play on curve, but we've got our 3, our 4, and our 5 mana play. So again, a very solid start to this game. Hit for 2, drop a Rager, and pass the turn. Phyrexian Rager does draw us into a Riveteer's Requisitioner, which was one of the Blitz cards that can work very well with Kethek, where we can order it to where Kethek makes us sacrifice the Requisitioner before the Blitz ability resolves. Here's a Wandering Mind from our opponent from Crimson Vow, classic card at this point. 1 a blue and a red for a 2/1 flyer. They get to dig for a non-creature, non-land out of the top 6, put in their hand. Very good 2-for-1, and it does find them a Lightning Strike, so that they have a solid removal spell here. Hopefully they trade Wandering Mind into one of these creatures. If they don't, I'm not going to be the biggest fan of just dropping out Puppeteer, because then they can Lightning Strike it while I have no creatures in grave, so that the Puppeteer doesn't get any death trigger value. So if they don't go for a trade here, I'll probably just play Kethek. I don't believe there are any 0-mana creatures in this deck. Yeah, there's none, so no point in sacrificing a Cult Conscript for Kethek. And luckily, though, they did go ahead and take the trade, so now I'm more than happy to play Puppeteer, because if they Lightning Strike Puppeteer, I get to put Phyrexian Rager back on my board, draw an additional card when it enters the battlefield. And of course, if they don't kill the Puppeteer, then I just have a nice 4/3 body that can potentially drain them some life if we draw any additional cards. Alright, they are going to shoot the Puppeteer. Let's get our Phyrexian Rager back. Draw a card there. Tenacious Underdog, some more powerful blitz stuff. This one really good because we can keep blitzing it from our graveyard. Do it over and over and over again. So I could play Drivnod just to have a gigantic creature on board, but I'd like to wait on Drivnod till I have 3 creatures in grave, so I can spend 4 life at instant speed to make it indestructible, play around another Lightning Strike style spell. There's a lot in Standard, so I really don't want to spend 5 mana and get my card blown up by a 2-mana removal spell. So I think instead I'm probably going to go like Rider and Requisitioner, or Rider and Underdog here. Non-token zombie. Are these zombies? Neither of these are zombies, so I guess I just go into combat first. If these were zombies, it'd be nice to play Headless Rider first in case they die. But now we'll play the Headless Rider post-combat. And then we'll play, I guess I'll go with the Requisitioner here. Well, no, Underdog is more expendable. It's better to have in the graveyard. And Requisitioner is also a little bit cheaper to blitz out of our hand if we need to get some hasting damage later. There's an Abrade, so Headless Rider is going to trigger though. We'll get the 2/2 zombie. That is 2 creatures in grave now. 1 more for Drivnod to be able to get indestructible with that secondary ability. Might go Kethek Requisitioner here. Depends on what we draw into and what our opponent casts. They are going to play an Arcane Proxy that lets them cast an instant mana value 2 or less from their grave. Yeah, so they just cast a Lightning Strike, kill a Phyrexian Rager, I guess. Fair enough. Oh, this thing does not have flying? This looks like a flyer. Its big flowing cape. Yeah, it doesn't have flying. Interesting. Ooh, Kinzu of the Bleak Coven, one of the brand new All Will Be One cards. Not only that, but it's one from like Jumpstart specifically or something. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, you can pay 2 life and exile it to get a 1/1 toxic version. Interesting. Not the greatest on this board state, but it's still a 5/4 flyer, which is tempting. I've got 3 creatures in grave though, so I think I just play Drivnod here. Yep, is there any reason to play Drivnod pre-combat? No, I have no death abilities on board. We'll cast the Drivnod main phase 2. Send in the squad. And here's Drivnod. 8/3 indestructible when we need it. If I try to go for indestructible right now and they have the 2 mana 3 damage burn in their hand, they get to kill it in response. Ooh. So yeah, we need to wait till they try to do something, then respond to that. And there we go. Drivnod now indestructible. Going to survive the fires of victory. And now they need to bounce it back to our hand or tap it down on board to deal with it. Fatal Grudge is the draw. Can kill the Flame Sage so they have no blockers and they take 10. Probably Blitz to death here. Yeah, I can Blitz Requisitioner and sack it to Grudge, and that would be lethal. I don't have enough black mana to Blitz the Underdog and sack that to Grudge, though. Yep, they are going to scoop them up. Our Fatal Grudge going to kill the Flame Sage, and then we'll have 12 damage left over. Or if I sacrifice one of the non-blitzing creatures instead, then we'll do 13 damage instead of 12. But I'm going to sack the blitz creature there, just in case they do have a burn spell to kill one of these. That way I'm not losing a permanent creature to attempt to get the lethal there. So yeah, great stuff from the Kethek deck, and we didn't even cast Kethek. Kethek, kind of a weird sort of commander. You can definitely build a very powerful Rakdos Sacrifice deck in general, as we saw from just our black-red aggressive stuff with good death triggers, good enter the battlefield triggers. Drivnod, of course, being pretty absurd there, being able to get that indestructible at instant speed. But it does feel like Kethek is kind of like the slowest thing going on in the whole deck. So we just didn't even play the commander there, but still got to play some cool stuff. Definitely some new stuff from Phyrexia would be one, Drivnod being pretty pivotal in that victory. Drivnod soaked up one of our opponent's removal spells and then threatened 8 damage on board, making a quick lethal to an opponent at 11 life. 2 more of our manga card styles. We have Kaya, Intangible Slayer, and Koth, Fire of Resistance. Cool stuff. Next up, we have Migloz Maze Crusher. 1 a red and a green for a 4/4 legendary Phyrexian beast that enters the battlefield with 5 oil counters on it. You can spend 1 mana and remove 1 to give it Vigilance and Menace till end of turn, 2 mana and remove 2 to give it +2/+2 till end of turn, 3 mana and remove 3 to destroy an artifact or enchantment. This card is pretty incredible, just a really absurd deal for only 3 mana. It attacks and blocks incredibly well if you need it to, but primarily just a super good attacker because you get to attack in, save all your mana up during combat, and your opponent just knows that even if they make some kind of triple block, you can just remove 4 oil counters from it and make it an 8/8 to make sure that it's going to win that combat. So it makes it really, really hard for your opponent to ever block it well because of just the threat of using its ability to buff it up. So often it just becomes this like 3 mana 4/4 that they almost never block, and then you just keep casting all your spells main phase 2 anyway. So plays incredibly well in draft and sealed. One of the best archetypes in the format as well, red-green oil. So I'm very excited to see how this deck does, but that's literally just the commander. Let's take a little peek at what the deck is trying to do outside of that. So we of course have all of the new oil counter stuff like Ichor Plate Golem, buffing all of our creatures that come with oil counters and giving them more oil. Cards like Urabrask's Anointer, dealing X to any target where X is the number of permanents we control with oil counters. Some more oil counter build-arounds like Magmatic Sprinter, putting a couple oil counters on something when you play it. Urabrask's Forge, spitting out X1s with Trample Haste equal to the oil on it. So tons of those new oil counter things, just becoming bigger and bigger the more oil counters you can get. So there's a little bit of proliferate in this deck as well. Cards like Thirsting Roots and Venomous Brutalizer there for that. But as for the older cards that this deck synergizes with, it's not just green-red oil, it's also green-red modified, synergizing with a lot of the Kamigawa stuff again. Kodama of the West Tree. Again, any creature with an oil counter on it does have a counter, so it counts as a modified creature, so Kodama will give them Trample and the ability to search for lands from our deck. The Remnant of the Rising Star, again, counts all of our creatures with oil counters on them as modified creatures towards getting that +5/+5 Trample. Invigorating Hot Spring is just one of the solid cards for red-green aggro and red-green modified in general. So we've got a lot of +1/+1 counter themes in the deck as well to get more modified creatures and beat our opponent down a little more quickly. And yeah, some more modified payoffs like Goro Goro, letting us spit out 5/5 flyers if we're attacking with a modified creature. And that's about it. Yeah, Merge Keeper, getting better when it's modified. Yeah, very cool way to use oil counters. Some good synergies with the old Kamigawa Neon Dynasty stuff. I expect this to be one of the stronger decks just because you have a 3 mana 4/4 with a bunch of absurd abilities every single game. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out as we head into the gameplay. Alright, here we are in game 1. We don't have any early game creatures, but we know we have Migloz turn 3. So we can just play some interaction, then play Migloz into Raiju, which is pretty aggressive. I'm going to roll with that here. Drop a Rugged Highlands turn 1 and pass the turn. It is going to be a Migloz Maze Crusher mirror match here. So don't really get to see how good the deck is against other decks, but we do get to see if we can win the mirror match. Alright, no turn 2 play for them either. I'm guessing we're both just going to play Migloz and pass. Feels likely. This just seems like the best turn 3 play in the deck. We can Flame Discharge their Migloz pretty easily. Or I could just play Raiju and attack with 2 4/4s against their 1 4/4. What is better to do here? How much mana is this going to take? X plus 2 damage is going to take 3 mana total. I don't get to do anything with the rest of my mana. It's probably the best to just keep them off of recasting their commander here. Yeah, this seems solid. It's going to cost them 5 mana to play it again. It deals X plus 2, so X equals 2, 2 plus 2 is 4. Auto pay. There we go. Hit for 4, we do not need to give the Vigilance here. Not that worried about haste from our opponent when we are on the play with a 4/4 already on the board. I think we're likely to be out racing. Turn 4 from our opponent. They can't recast their commander, but there are probably plenty of 4 mana creatures they could play. We're just hoping they have 3 toughness, so our other burn spells can get rid of those. Keep this board clear, keep Migloz slamming in. Luca Bound to Ruin is the play. 3 loyalty because they spent some life on it. Can make a 3/3 beast with Toxic 1. Yep, that's a creature we can kill with Kami's Flare or Volt Charge. So we'll kill that and hit Luca for 2. Get them both off the board, and then I can still hold up a Volt Charge here, which is super sweet. Could also just play a Raiju, attack with 2 4/4s. But then they get to keep that on board, make another 3/3, which doesn't feel awesome. It's an option, though. Well, no, I can kill it as well if I attack it with both of these, or if I give Migloz a Vigilance Menace. I think I'll do the Menace here. So Migloz definitely hits Luca, and then Raiju hits them. And shoots them for 1 because we have another modified creature. Yeah, this just seems great. They still have a 3/3 on board, but I have a 4/4 blocker for the 3/3, and I'm not really that worried about them racing. If they want to attack with it, I can just take the damage. Yeah, this feels better than just killing that 3/3. Ooh, Luca's mad. I don't know what he's saying, but he's angry. Alright, recast the commander it is. I can throw 2 removal spells at it if I want. Or I could just play Glorious Sunrise, give the board +1/+1 trample. Probably just double removal and they have no good blocks again. Seems fine by me. We even get to proliferate here, which is nice. 2 for 1 of myself, but I'm in a more than aggressive enough position here. Yeah, to where if I just keep pressure on them, they're not going to be able to deploy all of the cards in their hand. We just outrace them before they can cast all this stuff, and it doesn't matter if I fall behind and end up with like 1 card in hand against their 6. And it is going to work out. They're going to scoop them up there. And that is going to be our 3rd win. Grab our 5th and 6th card styles here. Now we have the Eternal Wanderer. And Kaito Dancing Shadow. Kaito, the cool one there. Very spidery ninja planeswalker. That's super spooky. And it is worth mentioning these are all Phyrexian style manga artworks, because these are all like the what if artworks. Of course, the Eternal Wanderer and Kaito did not get Phyrexianized in the story, but these are like, what if they did? And I guess if Kaito got Phyrexianized or completed, Kaito would have been a big spooky spider, which is kind of cool. For the blue-red deck, we have Ovika Enigma Goliath, 5 blue and a red for a 6/6 legendary Phyrexian Nightmare. Ovika has flying, ward 3, and paying 3 life for the ward. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you get X 1/1 Phyrexian Goblin creature tokens, where X is the mana value of that spell. They gain haste until end of turn. So this is a really powerful commander if you can get it onto the board, but it's a 7 mana commander, which is usually hard to get on the board. As we've seen in this format when we played the red-green and the red-black deck, those games ended very quickly before we even made it to 7 mana, and our game with the green-blue deck also ended the second that we made it to turn 7, the second that we had 7 mana at least. So I don't think Ovika is going to be a commander that gets cast all that often, very similar to our black-red commander. However, this is a blue-red spells deck, a blue-red spellslinger deck, which is still just a powerful archetype in Standard Brawl in the first place. We've got nice 2-for-1 spells like Wandering Mind. We have other commander power level cards like Balmor Battlemage Captain, able to buff our whole board. Third Path Iconoclast, spitting out 1/1s every time we cast spells. All the classic blue-red spell stuffs. A lot of ways to draw additional cards as we're casting spells between Wandering Mind and Serum Core Chimera. Ways to get 1/1s on the board, ways to make our spells cheaper with Vadrik. So the core of the deck is a lot of cards that get decent triggers as we're casting spells, like the Iconoclast, and then a bunch of very cheap burn spells and card draw spells. Volt Charge, Rending Flame, Cathartic Pyre, Abrade. Electrostatic Infantry can get bigger and bigger every time we're casting spells. So yeah, very classic blue-red spell stuff. I don't expect it to play super differently from any blue-red Spellslinger Standard Brawl decks that we've seen before. Again, just because with a 7 mana commander, I don't think we're going to see Ovika that often. Either way, let's head into the gameplay, see how it does. Alright, here we are on the play. We've got a Mercurial Spelldancer turn 2, which is a pretty sweet one. 2 mana for a 2/1 that can't be blocked is already solid. As we cast non-creature spells, we're putting oil counters on this, and if it deals combat damage to a player, we can remove 2 of those oil counters to copy the next spell we cast. So Spelldancer, very, very sweet card. Definitely a slam dunk pack 1, pick 1 during draft. 2 mana, 2/1 unblockable already makes the cut in almost any blue deck. Ooh, Wandering Mind for turn 3 here, since there's nothing we need to kill. I could Lightning Strike a Phyrexian Might to try to keep us not corrupted a little longer, but I'm going to curve out a little first before I get too worried about stopping the Toxic here. But, ooh, Burn Down the House is a premium card here because they have this card making more and more mites. Yeah, we do need to be worried that they don't get too corrupted, because if they do, all those mites having lifelink is going to make it really hard to race them. So we need to keep ourselves at less than 3 poison counters, ideally. Jaren Corrupted Bishop. When that or another non-token human dies, they lose a life and create a 1/1 human. So even if I kill that, they get another token here. It's kind of rough. Still just curving out. They have nothing that can block well, and then I have a 4/4 flyer that can just block the might unless they play a removal spell. I think we're staying aggressive here. They don't get a poison counter on us unless they kill our Manaform Hellkite. So we're still a good bit away from Corrupted. And also, if they don't kill the Manaform Hellkite, then we are attacking for 1,000,000 next turn. 8 damage on board with the Hellkite's ability to spit out an XX Dragon to also attack. Okay, so there's an Adeline from our opponent, 1 mana up. Sinew Dancer is not a removal spell. We might be able to just kill them. We have 8 damage already. If I can do 8 more, which I think I can with Mishra's Command, I think I can straight up just kill them this turn. Definitely stop them from corrupting us. Yeah, I think hitting the land does it. because we cast Mishra's Command for 5, that's going to make a 5/5 flying haste, and it's going to give the Hellkite +5/+0, and they have no blockers that'll work here. Yep. And if I couldn't kill them here, I could just burn down the house. So let's do X equals 4. Deal 4 damage to Adeline, because why not? I guess they'll get a 1/1, but whatever. And then buff up the unblockable creature and get another 4/4 flyer. And that is lethal on board. Attack with everybody, no blocks means they are down to -2, and that was an explosive game from the blue-red Spellslinger deck of Ovika, Enigma, Goliath, and just as we anticipated, the game ended way before we could cast Ovika. Although it wasn't how I thought it was. I thought the games were going to be ending because our opponent was going to be out aggroing us and just killing us before we make it to 7, but turns out this game has some aggressive feet as well, some aggressive plays to it. Powerful stuff there from Ovika. 7th and 8th card styles, we've got Nissa, Ascended Animist, and Jace the Perfected Mind, 2 that are actually 100% in lore completed Planeswalkers. Both also incredibly powerful cards in limited, and probably we'll even see a little bit of constructed play, either of them. Nissa making gigantic Phyrexia and horrors every single turn, or just giving your entire board +1,000,000/+1,000,000 in trample, and Jace being able to mill your opponent 15 cards the turn it hits the board, which in limited is almost the whole deck, quite often. Last but not least, we have Ria Ivor, Bane of Bladehold. 2 a white and a black for a 3/4 legendary Phyrexian Knight with Battle Cry. That means when this creature attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0 till end of turn, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, you can make it so the next time target creature would deal combat damage to 1 or more players, instead you prevent that damage and create that many 1/1 Phyrexian Mites with Toxic 1 that can't block. So very weird, very interesting ability on this commander. As we've seen before, this is probably the deck we're the most familiar with, just because we played against it multiple times. It's a pretty standard black-white tokens deck with some of the most powerful token cards in Standard. Of course, Adeline, Resplendent Cathar, Wedding Announcement, stuff like that. Restoration of Eiganjo also spitting out spirits, with the Architect of Restoration. Bunch of very powerful black-white token stuff. Skrelv's Hive, if we can get some corruption going. Giving our whole board lifelink is pretty sweet, or all of our toxic creatures at least lifelink. White Sun Zenith is going to be an incredible late-game play. Double white and 5 or more to destroy all creatures, and then play 5 or more Phyrexian Mites on the board. That'll be a pretty absurd way to end some games. But yeah, we've got some really fun stuff like Mondrak doubling up our token production. This Kaya is like the creature token specific Kaya as well. You can -2 to double up all of your token production for the turn, or you can +1 to put a +1/+1 counter on one of your creature tokens and give your board Death Touch. So very cool token-focused, token-themed deck. We'll see how it plays out as we head into the final round of gameplay. Alright, here we are on the play. We've got Reinforcements turn 2, Restoration of Eiganjo turn 3, Captain's Call turn 4. Just a good black-white tokens curve in general. We will keep. Playing against Migloz Maze Crusher, which I think is the best deck in my opinion. That being said, our curve is pretty good here, and we're on the play, and being on the play, of course, very advantageous in Magic the Gathering in general. Right, drop our Reinforcements. Drop Restoration. We just have our 6th land off of that. Turn 4 Rabble Rousing is going to be really nice after a turn, or turn 5 Rabble Rousing is going to be really nice after a turn 4 Captain's Call. If I draw anything that costs, any permanent that costs 2 or less, we can just put it into play off the Restoration with that discard ability. Alright, Migloz is down. We did not hit anything we can play, but I can just ramp up a little bit then. Migloz can blow up artifacts and enchantments, so I actually don't know if I'd get to just go Captain's Call into Rousing if that's going to be on board. I might have to just Legions to Ashes that. Although if they use it to blow up my Restoration, yeah, I'm just going to Captain's Call here. They might use Migloz to blow up Restoration, in which case it won't have enough counters to blow up Rabble-Rousing anymore. Or they might tap themselves out of it. Because again, I can immediately hit 10 tokens, because I have 5 on board. I attack with 5. Oh yeah, this is going to be sweet. So they don't have enough oil counters on Migloz anymore to blow up another artifact or enchantment. So we just play Rabble-Rousing attack with everybody and cast something for free and just have a million creatures out. Slam dunk. Rabble-Rousing, let's go. Cast a Might Overseer for free. Oh my god, get my tokens first strike out of nowhere? That's stronger than the other 3. Again, a free White Sun's Twilight is going to be for 0, which means it does nothing. So we go Might Overseer here. And this is going to be devastating. This might just be game. It's just an insane curve with Rabble-Rousing at the top. Yep, that looks pretty good. That looks like a pretty good board state, I'd say. Even against the Migloz deck. They do have some board wipes in there. They could recover. They have like the Saga that deals 2 to each creature. That's pretty devastating in this matchup for us. But if they don't hit pretty much like exactly that, I think we're good with this board state. I guess it's possible they have enough mana now, thanks to their ramp, that they could play 2 targeted removal spells. They could shoot the Might Overseer for 3 damage with like a Volt Charge or a Kami's Flare or something. And then they could also blow up the Rabble-Rousing with their Crushing Canopy thingy. So if they have like 2 different targeted removal spells here, dealing with both of those would be pretty good for them. I don't think it would end the game immediately, but it would be good. Alright, so kill the Might Overseer. Do they also kill the Rabble-Rousing? Oh, they can with Migloz because the Volt Charge proliferates. So having exactly Volt Charge there was incredible for our opponent. Okay, well, we know that we don't get more tokens no matter what. Because they're going to blow it up when we try to move to combat. Do I do my sorcery speed removal on Migloz here? No, I'm probably just going to play Ria Ivor and Jadar, so we'll just go to combat, force them to use the Migloz thing here. They don't! Yeah, it's too late. We get to trigger it. Too late to blow up Rabble-Rousing. Alright, then we just attack with everybody if they don't blow up the enchantment there. Again, if they were going to blow up the enchantment, we probably just no attack and then we play Ria and Jadar. Have that Legions to Ashes for next turn. Alright, again, they pretty much just need the board wipe. Blowing up the Rabble-Rousing with Migloz is not going to be enough. Kami's Flare, Ria Ivor. Throw another burn spell at her. Oh, maybe they got mixed up with the other one and they thought it was deal an additional 2 if they have a modified creature. And not do 2 damage to the controller if you have a modified creature. Yeah, I think they got mixed up with the other burn spell. They thought it was if you control a modified creature, it also does an additional 2 damage to that permanent. But no, it does the 2 damage to that permanent's controller if you control a modified creature. Alright, blow up the Rabble-Rousing. That is fair enough. Use their land to put another oil on Migloz. And with Battlecry from Ria, I should be able to just kill them here, but I'll go ahead and exile Migloz as well. Make very sure. Attack with everybody, get our battle cry trigger. I don't actually want to use this, I'm just going to put it on adaptive, I guess. Yeah, I just want to deal combat damage here and hit for lethal. Block, 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 take like 28, 30? Wow, yeah, this battle cry is huge. It's gonna be like 26 damage minimum. 31 maybe? Yep, 31 damage there. Good grief, that was an incredible curve from the Ria Ivor deck. That rabble-rousing, being explosive when you get to play multiple token producers on the earlier turns. So on turn 2, make 2 creatures. Turn 4, make 3 more, have 5 creatures total, so that the second we attack with rabble-rousing, we get 10 permanents on our board, 10 creatures on our board to trigger the hideaway immediately. That was really the winner of the game there, but with our commander having battle cry, when we get into those positions with like 10 creatures on board, dropping commander is going to easily solidify enough damage to end the game, and that's going to be the final victory for us, the final game of the day. Let's check out our final 2 Planeswalker Card Styles. That is a very cool Vraska. And very cool Luca, but the I think the reason the Vraska looks so good to me is that with the black and white card styles, the darker the artwork, the more grays and blacks, the better it looks on Arena to me. The more line art style, like very bright, mostly white the artwork is, kind of the worse it kind of looks to me. That's why I like the Vraska art a lot. I liked the Kaito art as well, because Kaito was generally a pretty dark artwork with the whole spider thing going on. Wasn't a huge fan of the Wandering Emperor artwork either for that reason, because it was just like that very bright white. So I think these art styles work really, really well on the darker artworks like Vraska. They're pretty, well, they're pretty. Just like that Kaito artwork. Well, that is going to end today's video. If you want to see some more videos like this, you can like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more of these in your recommended feeds. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you would like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon in the link in the description below. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.